And welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a very simple bending resin project. Now I did one just recently and it's the first time I've done one in a few years, and I shared it on social media and I had a few people asking me if there was a video. I did actually film it at the time, but then I realized once I went to edit it that I'd turned the video on and off when it should have been the other way around. So I've decided to do a smaller version of it and film this. So there's not much to it. I've just got these cellophane sheets that I've cut down from some bags that I use for housing some prints, and because they're normally bags, there's usually two sheets together, so I've separated them, so then that's given me extra layers, and each of these pieces are going to be double layer pieces, and I want them to look and resemble a little bit like a water splash. So there's going to be very little color in the resin, and there's going to be just some acrylic diamonds to enhance the edges. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'm going to go and mix some resin and then I'll be back. Right, I've mixed up 600 ml of resin and it's got a few bubbles in, but they don't worry about that. Once we pour it out, it'll dissipate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a touch. I'm going to pour some of it into this cup, and then I'm going to add some of ink to it. Now I'm just going to see how far 600 ml goes, because I'm going to be doing a few of these pieces, so I just want to see how many pieces I can make with 600 mils. My little dropper doesn't work, so I'm just going to use a pipette to add some of the colour. So I've just done 5 drops for now, and then I'll add more if I need more. Yes, that's quite translucent, so that's pretty good. So although it looks quite dark in the cup, when you pull the stick you can see there's very little colour in there. So make sure that's well and truly mixed up. I mean, it doesn't matter so much if it's not, because it can be nice where you've got like darker areas and lighter areas. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start putting these sheets down and then just pouring a small amount in the centre. Now I don't want it to be too big, because these are just going to be small trinket dishes. I'm just going to let it grow, see how far it goes, and see if it needs any more. So I'm going to go and do the same on other sheets. Okay, so I'll come back once this is spread a little bit, and then I'll make a decision on whether I want to add some more to it. So I was able to get enough for 2, 4, 6, so 2, 4, 6, 8. So I can do 4 trinket dishes. So I'm just going to add a little bit more resin to each of them, just to spread them out a little bit. And I like when we do it like this, the free form, where I'm not controlling the edges or anything. So each of the shapes is going to be slightly different, and they're all slightly different sizes. And that's what I like about these freeform bowls, is that they are all organic and they move and go the way they want. The trickiest part about this is actually knowing when to come back and bend them. So it's a case of keeping an eye out on how long they're taking, come back every so often and see when they're ready. And I usually wait until the resin is touch dry, but not completely dry, so you can leave fingerprints in it, and then that's when I'll come to move it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it set up a little bit. I'm going to spritz it with some alcohol, let it set up a little bit, and then we're going to add some of the acrylic diamonds around the edge. So just using some isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol or anything like that, just give it a little spritz, and that'll burst any bubbles on the surface, because you don't want to add any heat to this, because you don't want to melt the plastic underneath. So this is a way of just getting rid of those bubbles on the surface. Right, I'm going to come back in about 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to start sprinkling the diamonds on. So I'll see you in a minute. So in case you're wondering how I clean my tubs and jugs and things like that, what I do is I use a touch of methylated spirits and I just pour a small amount in the bottom of the jug or container, and then using a paper towel I literally just go in and just clean the inside and keep going until all of the resin is being removed, and then that's it, then good to go for next time. And then I'd just let the resin cure on the paper towel, and so tomorrow when that's all cured I'll then discard that in the bin. So where some of the resin is creeping out to the outer edge of the bag, I'm just going to put a little stick just so that the resin won't flow any further up the stick, and then it'll come back down. I don't mind, it's still got a little bit of shape there, but I don't want it flowing off the sheet here. So just by placing a stick, it just elevates it slightly so that it'll run back down. Right, I've just had myself a nice cup of tea, and in the time it's taken me to have the cup of tea, the resin is now no longer moving, so it's found its level spot. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of these decoration fillers to the outside of the resin. Now I shall put a link in the description for all of the products that I use here, from the resin to these fillers. Now I know that you can't all get this particular brand in the US, so I will find an alternative brand and link that also. So I'm just going to pop this open, and then using a spoon I'm going to pour these on here. Now I don't know whether you know that, but if your pieces are not well mixed and you've got some large ones at the bottom and small ones at the top, you can actually hit the bottom and you'll find that some of the larger ones will then move to the top. So you can definitely mix those up a little bit, because I like to have them random around the edges. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a small amount and just start sprinkling them around the edge. Now I'm being mindful to follow the shape. I quite like the fact that the shape is quite organic, and it's not uniform. I like that, because then it makes for more interesting shape bowls and dishes. Now it's okay if you've got some pieces that are outside of the resin, because what will happen is the resin, once you've got these sitting in the resin will move slightly, just because the weight of these gemstones. Right, I'm going to go and do the same with the other layers, and we will be back in a couple of hours to then go and mold these into shape. Right, well, it's been 4 hours since I poured this, and I've got a little bit of resin at the side here which is no longer sticky, although it is leaving a couple of finger marks. So I'm going to call this ready to move. Now you could leave it for a bit longer, so you do have another couple of hours window to move it while it's in this state, or you can still move it the next day depending on the weather and how thick it is. But because this is quite thin, I've got quite a long window of opportunity to move it, but I want to get it done and then I can then leave it overnight. So I've got myself some little bowls that I'm going to use to drape these over. So what I need to do is I need to get my items ready for draping. So I'm just going to use various bottles and what have you, place that over the top, and then I can position the resin over the top. Now it's a little bit sticky underneath because I was using it for something else. So here we go. So I'm just going to position that so you can sort of see it, and then I'm just going to drape this over the top. this over a touch. So what I want to do now is just start manipulate. Ooh, that wasn't a good start, was it? So I just want to manipulate this so that I've got some nice folds. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a sheet of plastic over the top, just so that when I'm positioning the other one on top, it's not sticking straight away. So I'm just going to position this over the top just to make it a little bit easier for myself when placing the next one, so that I can actually move it to get the position. So I've got a short area here, and what I want to do is have a longer piece in that area. So I'm just going to position this like so, and again I'm going to manipulate it to get the look that I'm after. Okay, so now I'm just going to leave this to do its thing, and then we'll come back tomorrow and see what it's like. Well, good morning. So now this has been left overnight and it's now hardened up quite a bit. So now we can move, excuse that, move this out the way and then separate them. So by placing that extra sheet in between, it just makes it easier to lift the two pieces apart. We can just move that out the way, and we can reuse these sheets. So I'm just going to peel this off. So as you can see, it comes off very easily and it leaves a nice, smooth, clear finish. Now, if you want to see how I finish these pieces off and how I add some extra detail, stick around for that. Otherwise, if you've seen enough, then please feel free to go. So all we need to do now is to, is it that? Yes. So let's find which way it goes, which way it slots in. Here we go. That's the way. So now we need to do is we just need to glue these two pieces together, and then, as I say, I'm going to add some extra details to the outside. I've just got to wait for the sun to appear, and then we're going to go outside and add some extra details. So you've probably gathered by now that I'm actually going to be applying some UV resin to these pieces, not only to glue them together but also to add some extra dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the top layer out of the way. So let's part these. So what I want to do is I want to add some lines in here to give a little bit more dimension to the piece. So what I'm using is I'm going to use some UV resin, and I'm going to let the UV cure in the sun. So all I'm literally doing is I'm just creating some little lines and little streams of resin on the top. Also, this is a good time now, so if you've got any pieces that are coming loose a little bit, you can actually add a little bit of the UV resin to glue in those pieces. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it round so that it's facing the sun, and then just literally just drizzle a small amount up and down the piece, and it just adds an extra layer of detail and dimension to the piece. Now the sun will warm this resin up a little bit because the resin is not fully cured yet. Just let me pop the lid on here. So the resin's not fully cured yet, so it's still a little bit soft, so I still need to maintain it in this downward position until it has cured. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that on there, and then I'll turn it around periodically to make sure that that is curing in the sun, and then I will then put those two pieces together. So I'm going to do the same with this side. Now I've done this before, and when the resin cures on the nozzle, when I'm inside, I'll just peel that off, and then that just comes off quite easily. And because the bottle is black, the sun's not getting in the inside to cure the rest of it, so I'm finding that that's not being too much of an issue. And it works really well on these clear pieces. I haven't tried it with any darker pieces of resin, but I think that it would be fine as long as it was left out in the sun to cure. So I'd be interested to know if you've done anything similar to this. See how it adds those extra ripples and it just gives it a nice dimension. Right, so I really like that effect. So I'm just going to pop that out the way. Just pop this on the top for now, just while that's curing a touch. And I'll just rotate these just to make sure the sun is on them. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the position that this needs to sit on the top. So I'm not sure which way around it goes. Just let me work out how this sits again, and then I'm going to position it. There we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some UV resin on the bottom. And I'm going to glue this in place like so, and then position that in the sun once again. Okay, so I'm now going to leave this to cure in the sun, and then we'll take a look at it once it's all cured. Well, I'm delighted with how these turned out, especially with those extra lines of UV resin to give them extra detail and dimension. I think they've turned out really well. I hope you enjoyed it too. I also hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please give it a thumbs up, or better still, subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be bringing you lots more ideas. So until next time, bye for now.